Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of the Pittsburgh Steelers Show on your SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Will Massasak, a.k.a. Accidental Zen on Twitter, or if you go to SteelerFury.com, also known as Bradshaw to Ben. And with me tonight, I got the full house. We got the full complement of cohorts here. First of all, from Gary, Indiana, not really Gary, Indiana, from Indianapolis, Indiana, his name is Jeremy Coleman. He's with us. How are you, sir?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Not too bad. We're in a musical kind of mood, apparently. Also with us from somewhere in Suburban Zone 22, he was lost in the Ethernet. He was on his own recording call tonight. His name is Steel Birch. He's with us. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing better now. Tom Brady just threw a pick.
It does. It like makes your heart skip a little beat, doesn't it? And rounding up the cast, last but definitely not least, his name is Dom. He goes by FC. He's with us from somewhere in the South. He's with us. How are you, sir?
I played 18 holes of golf in shorts and a T-shirt in the middle of fucking November, so I really don't have any room to complain.
Nice. So you're a fan of global warming, then apparently. Yikes. Set the planet on fire because the Steelers are 10-0 and they're hot. Let me see what I did there. They're 10-0, and I'm sure we're going to do nothing but complain about all the problems that they have for the next 45 minutes to an hour. To get things started, I'm going to go to you first, FC. What did you make of this game against Jacksonville? It seemed like it was a little bit like not that they went through the motions, but it was kind of like they did the bare minimum necessary to blow out the Jacksonville Jaguars. How'd you see it?
I think if they wanted to aggressively attack with the passing game, they could have basically sacked the starters most of the second half. They worked on some things. They dilly-dallied. They won. Got no room to complain. The game really never was in question.
They did, in fact, dilly-dally. Jeremy, I said something earlier today. I think that the Steelers, someone was complaining the Steelers threw too many short passes, and I was like, I think the Steelers could have run a quarterback sneak on every offensive play and still won this game. What did you think about the Steelers' offensive attack? And I'll use the words a little bit loosely.
Well, they got back to the run game a little bit this week. I think they know what the Ravens coming to town, it's going to be something that they have to do a little bit just to alleviate some of the pressure off Ben. I was reading today that this is the third game in a row that the Steelers have not given up a sack. Apparently that's a franchise record. I can't remember where I read that. So it's always a great day when Big Ben doesn't get touched by a defender. So
yeah, that's the good news. Perch, how did you see it?
I think you kind of nailed it at the beginning. They did just enough. And, that third quarter when they just didn't score anything on offense and they were just kind of just milking the game a little bit and holding to that 14-point lead. When it got to the fourth quarter and they felt like they needed some points, they completely abandoned the running game, threw 12 out of 14 plays and scored 10 points on 2 drives. And they did just enough. They did what they had to do to win, to rest some guys, to, not put too much out there and get ready for game Thursday.
FC, here's the part about this team that's totally mysterious. They're, even setting aside the ridiculous analytics that want to talk about how Baltimore is better than the Steelers, even though they've got 3 losses, or that Ben is the 22nd ranked quarterback in the league, and so on. Even setting that stuff aside, just watching them, nobody would think this offense is really clicking and is really like a powerhouse offense, and yet they're 4th in the league in scoring. They're 4th in the league in scoring, and they sort of feel like they've been stuck in second gear for most of the year. I don't understand, how it's like smoke and mirrors. How are they so successful scoring, but yet leave us this feeling of it's not really all together?
We're waiting for the bottom to fall out, waiting for the offense to be completely stymied. It's just an expectation. It's what 75% of the people on this phone call or Zoom webcast expect, just because we've seen it so many times between Bradshaw and Ben, the quarterbacks folding up, Cordell folding up in the playoffs, this team folding up in the playoffs. So we have expectations of if we were scoring 30 points a game, we'd want 35. If we were scoring 35, we want 38, just so to basically calm our nerves. I also believe the Steelers lead the league in point differential, where, we're really not looking to score too much in the fourth quarter because we're not behind and we're not having to manufacture points too often. So we basically are looking to end games and run clock and get out of there healthy and rack up another win.
Yeah, Perch, I mean, do you feel like this strategy, like they're a Testarossa and they have room to open it up, but they haven't really needed to yet? Or do you think they actually haven't been capable of doing more? They would be doing more if they could be.
FC nailed it. I mean, why open up when you're beating a team by 20 or 30 points or, they're trying to establish the run game? Every time they've had to have points, they spread the field, they put the ball in Ben's hands, and they move down and score points. Every time, all season. So people who are shitting their pants about not being able to run the ball whenever they feel they should have to run, I can give a rat's ass less. When they need to score points, they give it to Ben. They've got 4 really good receivers and a really good tight end, and they could do whatever the hell they want. When they play Kansas City, if they get to that point in the playoffs, we could spread them out and score point for point with Kansas City all day. And you know what? And that game is going to come down to which defense can actually make a stop or a play or get a turnover. I trust what the Steelers can do. But, regular season games, week to week, mediocre opponents that they've had to play, when you're playing a team who's got some undrafted free agent rookie at quarterback, why open it up? Get the lead, milk the clock, win the game. That's what they're doing.
So, Jeremy, speaking of point differential, the Steelers' defense, on the other hand, I wrote this week they were in kind of a no-win scenario in this game because, if they completely shut them down, like that's just what they're supposed to do. If Jacksonville makes any plays on offense or scores any points, then it was like a huge failure for the defense somehow. So in a game where the Steelers, had 4 turnovers and pretty much completely shut Jacksonville down, are we going to be, are you going to nitpick with what they did, or do you feel like that was a pretty dominant performance?
I mean, I think it's pretty dominant performance. They only put up 3 points. That FC alluded to it a little bit. Jake Luton was an undrafted free agent quarterback out of this year's rookie class. I don't think they expected him to be able to move the ball. We only got 2 sacks on the day, but we forced a lot more pressure than what the sack column was going to show this week. Both safeties got 2 interceptions. I mean, turned the ball over 4 times. A few plays we gave up in the run game, but I mean, you're going to do that every week. I think, the effort was just about as dominant as you can expect, only giving up 3 points.
I mean, Perch, supposedly the turnovers, creating so many turnovers on defense was not supposed to be sustainable from year to year. But I think the Steelers are either on the same pace that they were last year or maybe even a little bit ahead of it after this last week. What do you think makes the Steelers so good at turning the football over? Is because, ordinarily I would say pass rush, although the pass rush this week was solid, but not necessarily like crazy. What do you think is making all these turnovers?
It's the pressure that they're putting on the quarterback, for one. For 2, I think the secondary's really evolved over the last 2 years, where they've got some better players in there. The players they've got are more comfortable. Every week Cam Sutton's jumping after a ball and almost getting a pick, and you've got a really good safety who's always in the right position with Minka, and just the rest of those guys are really coming along. They've also played some shit quarterbacks. I mean, we're not facing the creme de la creme of the NFL this year, so that adds to it too. But to me, it's twofold. 1, just the pressure, and 2, having a competent secondary, and 3, you throw in bad quarterbacks that they're playing against.
Yeah, although it's like this, the quarterback quality, the longer time goes on, the worse quarterbacks look, so that the creme de la creme of the quarterback crew in the NFL gets smaller and smaller over time. It doesn't get bigger. FC, I'm going to give you a chance to expound on Terrell Edmonds' 2 turnovers. First time in 42 games that he's had an interception, and he got 2 of them. Here's the question I'm going to ask you. Did it not seem like after he got the first one that it was such a huge like weight lifted off his shoulders? He looked dynamite after that, I thought.
He actually has played well the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I would definitely say the Jacksonville game was the first time he looked engaged completely and not thinking about the passing game, just flowing, just being another piece on the chessboard that's flowing to his spot, being where he was at, trusting his eyes and getting there. And he made plays at the end. I mean, the first one, I believe, was a T.J. Watt pass defense. He still made a play on the ball. You know, it looks like Deion Sanders one-handed, toe tap in the scoreboard. And the second one was a nice play. Minka is a ball hawk, so that's expected.
Sure.
And, I mean, I've been more impressed with Evans in run fits and covering backs and tight ends. He's been solid. James Robinson's a nice little back.
Not bad, right? Yeah.
He covered him up, did a great job at it. I think Butler had a pretty good plan. I think the defense executed. And I completely agree with Perch. I believe it was Bite Carson in perfect Western Pennsylvania, Central Ohio accent that says, pressure, bust, pipes, talking about the mid-70s Steelers defense. And that goes back 45, 50 years now. Pressure, bust, pipes.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I think that is maybe the start of it all. But, yeah, it just feels like we're so lucky. And I don't know how much longer we're going to have them. We've got to really appreciate this defense as it's presently construed. Because, they really got something special going on for sure. On James Robinson, just quickly, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say if you factor in health and availability, he's a top 5 running back in the league. I mean, he might even be top 3 when you factor in health. If he does not turn into a guy that misses a couple games every year with injury, like a couple of the other guys who are very good in this league, I think it'd be hard to argue that he isn't, which is amazing for an undrafted guy. I know he's already he's either already surpassed or to this point in his career, he's got the most yards from scrimmage of any undrafted running back in the history of the league, which is kind of incredible. So Jeremy, in terms of as a warm up almost for the rest of the week and for next week's game, which we'll get into in a minute. It just feels like it brings to mind when I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, this is going to be sort of torturous to watch the Steelers the rest of this year because, we're already thinking playoffs and about what can they do and how far can they go. And these games are all like, in a way, they're all sort of trap games. They're all games where, there's almost no upside for them. It's like, yes, they need to win, but B, like everybody needs to stay healthy and, yes, you want them to work on things and get better, but it's like then we also want them to blow out teams so they can rest their quarterback and, blah, blah, blah. So where do you find the balance? This is the getting to the question. Where do you find the balance in games where you're not playing contenders, but you are still trying to remain undefeated, and you're still trying to get that number 1 seed, you're still trying to win your division, et cetera?
Well, like you said, this game kind of a warm-up to the Baltimore Ravens game on Thanksgiving this week. I think you kind of have to always play up to the level of potential. So when you do get to those big games here on the back half of the schedule here where we play the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills, the Indianapolis Colts, 3 teams that all could be in the playoffs, we need to be at our top form when we play those teams. So in my opinion, I think we did pretty much what we wanted to this week. Felt like we played good for 3.5 quarters. And then for the last 10 minutes of the game, we will take the foot off the gas pedal. We threw in Mason Rudolph, for the last 5 minutes of the game, had a lot of backups in on defense. I mean, I think that's the strategy you kind of have to keep employing, against the teams that, they're not the best opponents. I mean, shoot, we're going to play the Ryan Finley-led Bengals here in a few weeks. That should be another kind of mop-up game with no Joe Burrow being there. But we can't afford to get sloppy because, sometimes when you're sloppy, it kind of continues to build. So you have to continue to stay sharp because you want to be even sharper when you play these teams that will be in your way on the path to the 7th Lombardi. So
sure. So Perch, one of the things I'm certain that they're working on this week, that they were working on and trying to get better at, is running the football. This we broke down last week a lot of the issues that are going on, but is it even possible to really fix the execution in the run game or really upgrade the talent that's running the football during this season? Like, I just feel like that's the kind of thing where I'm not positive that they're going to get that much better. Are my expectations too low for what they can do?
Yeah, just watching against the Jags, even the gimmick shit isn't working. So I don't know if they're just that predictable. Which even the stuff going wide, the stuff to the wide receivers, they aren't super talented at running back, which is a problem. I mean, you look at Baltimore; their top 2 running backs are out this week, and they probably still have the best running backs in the game, which is kind of crazy. Gus Edwards is your 3rd guy, and even their 4th guy's got some talent. So, I think James Conner's a decent back, but I just don't think we have anything dynamic after him on the roster, really. At least it's been proven. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of at a loss with the run game at this point. For as much talent as we have on the offensive line, you think they'd be able to go out there and push somebody around and just force their will on somebody, but they're not. One, they're not able to do that. 2, the gimmick stuff isn't even working now. So it worked well early in the year. I don't know what happened. I don't have a good solution for it.
I mean, FC just seemed like when they against Houston, for instance, in the second half of that game, they were just like they were coming off the ball with a different kind of like they got off the ball with energy and in lockstep, and they running backs were hitting the hole, and the tight end was coming around, and pulling guard was coming around, and they were just annihilating that team. I mean, okay, Vance McDonald coming back maybe helps a little bit, but what accounts for this sort of, they don't seem to be getting off the line? Is it DeCastro's not healthy? Is it Filer's not really, up to the task right now? Like what is going on that you have identified that you think can be repaired, I guess is what I would say.
I got a guy. Thankfully, I got a guy. Sent me a Twitter message, and he sent me some advanced statistics, and boy, does this guy dig on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he had a breakdown, and the Steelers had a pro set, meaning I formation, or 2 tight ends, average almost 4.2 yards per carry running the football. Out of any other set, multiple wide receivers, we average 1.8 yards per rush.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. Perch mentioned predictability. We really, really, really run the same 3 or 4 runs out of 3 wide receiver plus sets. We have 3 or 4 options. We didn't even run the draws the last 2 weeks, which we did have some success on some delayed draws. If you take those out, you don't even want to look at the run game. So predictability. When we run out of the I, or when we run out of 2 tight ends, Derek Watt's been injured, Vance McDonald's injured, and oh my God, Zach's injury sucks. And Zach Ebron will get in the way. He's not a great run blocker. So I think the Steelers really don't have the ability to run out of I formation or 2 tight ends because of personnel. Whenever that personnel gets healthy, I think you might see some old school Steeler grinding run game. Unfortunately, you can't bring in a 3rd tackle. That shit don't work anymore. This is in 1995.
Yep.
Teams have solved it. Teams destroy it. If you're going to bring in the 3 tight end or 3 tackle offense, you better be willing to throw 75% of the time, which I have no problem with. But if you're going to max protect, you better have 2 vertical routes. So predictability and personnel is the Steelers' problem. I don't think as much as offensive line. I think that was incorrect with my initial thought, and I think that the 5 guys up front could be really helpful with play calling and getting other parts of the run game healthy, meaning tight ends and fullback.
Yeah, well, I noticed, Perch, that the Steelers had a goal-to-go opportunity, and brought in the fullback, and you're like, hey, we got a fullback in the game. This is awesome. And then I realized it was J.C. Hassenauer and not Derek Watt. What is going on, man?
I didn't even notice that until you just pointed it out. But that's I still don't understand why they paid all that money to Watt. I mean, it can't just be for special teams. You'd think that they would have thought, hey, this is going to be our. Ooh, Brady just got hammered. Nice. You would think that it was with the idea in mind that to bring back some of that power run game to ice games to move the ball in have to gain a yard situations, and it just really hasn't worked out. I mean, they are pretty enamored with the spread them out and go, but I don't know what I just don't know what a good solution for the run game is, because it was working pretty well the first 6-7 games of the year, and the last 4 have just been stuck in the mud, and it just doesn't seem to have a good solution to get out of it yet.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, if you're going to bring in, if you're not bringing in Derek Watt because he's not 100% healthy or whatever, you bring in Hassenauer, why not bring in Kevin Dotson? I mean, for that matter, if you're going to run an extra tackle out there, why bring in Gerald Hawkins? Why not bring in Dotson either to play the extra tight end or Dotson into the guard and move Filer out to the outside where he's comfortable? Like I kind of, I'm not really a fan of the extra offensive lineman anyway, but you got this guy who you really would like to see on the field a little bit more, who's clearly better than Hawkins. So try to help me understand this.
I wish I understood it more too, because it's really frustrating when Gerald Hawkins, number 65, runs out there and just telegraphs whatever run play we're going to. FC alluded to it. We've got to find a way to run without an extra offensive lineman on the field. It just telegraphs everything we want to do on the play. He's not a guy that's going to go out and run a route. He's in there to block. I'd much rather have Kevin Dotson out there. He was only Pro Football Focus's top-graded rookie, when he was replacing David DeCastro to begin the year. So he's put some good film out there. I dare say I think he's more athletic than Gerald Hawkins. I think he looks better on the move. He actually pulled well when asked to do it. Like you said, move Filer out, get his big ass out on some smaller linebacker where Dotson can come around and pull. I just don't think there's any creativity at all to what the Steelers are trying to do in the run game. And then the gimmicks aren't working. FC and Purse said that too. The jet sweeps aren't fooling anyone anymore. I can't even recall the last time we handed the ball off to Chase Claypool on the sweep since we did it in week 3 against Houston.
Dotson is not back. He was not available this week, but he's not available on Sunday. It looks like he's going to be available for Thursday, but they haven't confirmed that yet. But I was going to say, I'll add more to that. They haven't handed it to Deontay Johnson. Like, I'm not even sure they handed it to Deontay Johnson once this year coming around. And I understand he's playing the X, and it doesn't really help. It doesn't make him available to come across and do that. But Perch, creativity is not just a jet sweep. I mean, like adding the jet sweep motion in. Okay, yeah, that got them up to 2000. Like they're only 20 years behind, right? But there's so many other variations that these creative teams are using, and I just feel like if I were the Steelers brain trust, even if it's an assistant to an assistant, you'd have them watching what Andy Reid is doing, what Shanahan is doing. What even Gruden is doing, like Gruden. So you talk about an old dog learning new tricks. Their offense looks amazingly modern, considering the genesis of it and where he's at. I just feel like we could add a wrinkle once in a while, and maybe they don't feel like they practice enough to add wrinkles. But gee whiz, there's got to be more to life than a jet sweep or a run up the middle. Basically, I feel like that's have been the choices right now. Sorry, that was kind of a question for you, Bridge. Go ahead.
It's baby steps. I mean, think about how unoriginal they were last year. At least they put a couple wrinkles in. I will correct you, though. Deontay Johnson has run the ball this year, and every time he's running, he's either gotten a concussion or folded in half. So I personally never want to see him return a kick or run a sweep or anything ever. Let him catch it in space where he's not going to get folded up by a linebacker. I mean, that guy's he's got to hit the weight room. But let's just stop bitching about the offense and appreciate how effective they've been in the red zone, how efficient they've been at putting points on the board per drive and per yard. I mean, Ben's touchdown ratio is off the charts this year. They're putting sevens on the board. They're putting up a lot of points every week. We can nitpick and bitch about the running game. I can give a rat's ass less about it because when it comes down to the playoffs, they're going to have to play better teams. They're going to have to put points on the board. The way they're going to do it is spreading them out, throwing the ball, and they've got plenty of weapons. And Ben's back, and they'll be able, I'm not concerned big picture about it. I know we're Steelers fans and we grew up in the 70s and 80s and 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but, times change.
You don't even have to go back to the 70s. 2008, if you remember, the Steelers offense was beleaguered all year. They had problems, with all kinds of things. Ben making mistakes and turnovers. And he was injured the whole year, and they had injury problems elsewhere. Their short yardage game in terms of especially the run game was the worst that they've maybe ever had. They had a horrible offensive line shuffles because of injury, and sure enough, what happened? They got into the Super Bowl. They scored a short yardage touchdown. Gary Russell scored a touchdown, and when they needed the points to win the game, they spread the field, and Ben worked his way down the field and won the game. So the precedent is definitely there. Although 2008 is quite a long time ago now. FC, something else good to say? There must be something else that you positive that you took out of this matchup.
Absolutely. I was going to close it out with, I could not agree more with Perch. And the thing is our offense is not maligned. It's really not struggling. We're not turning the ball over. I think we're the second highest scoring offense in the NFL. And I think there's still a ton of meat left on the bone of our passing game where Derek Watt is not a fantastic run blocker. He's a good run blocker. What he is he's a very complete fullback, more in the line of John L. Williams, as whenever we sign him. Now, he's never going to get 70 receptions like John L. Williams did for the Steelers. But I think that we have some sneaky fucking plays that Vance McDonald and Derek Watt that we haven't shown. Plus, we're integrating Eric Ebron into the passing game. And I said it 4 or 5 weeks ago, if you take the complete unit, complete offense, I'll take the Steelers' weapons with their offensive line and the passing game that we have over any team in the NFL, including the Kansas City Chiefs. Because after you get past Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, Mecole Hardman sucks. Pringle sucks. DeMarcus Robinson drops the ball a ton. Le'Veon Bell, you can only dead leg so much. I will take our weapons. Claypool, Juju, Washington, Johnson, Ebron, and James Conner is, making plays like a dog. I mean, he's not running the ball great. He has done fantastic with some early blitz pickups. He's done a great job just shielding off receivers to make those shallow crosses happen. Conner may not be being super productive running the ball, but he's still an integral part of the team, and he's staying involved, which I respect.
Hey, FC, follow up. If you get Eric Ebron matched up on a linebacker or a strong safety from the slot, he is absolutely uncoverable. That 10-yard burst off the line, he's open against all but maybe 3 linebackers in the league. Am I right? I mean, that's the really special part of his game, man. He has some bursts to get going for a big guy.
It hasn't even been shown yet. You just seen Claypool and Johnson and Juju. Yeah. What happens when we get the other parts going?
Yep. No, that touchdown on Sunday was definitely a play where he ran that stick nod, and amazing that he, like I said, by the time that he got into the defender, that guy's got no chance. I mean, that's a safety that just got no chance to stay with Eric Ebron either on the burst up the field, got into him so fast, and then when he cut it back to the inside, got a huge body to try to get around. So I was positive, I was hopeful when Eric Ebron was signed, but I wasn't necessarily super optimistic about it. But boy, he's been better than I thought he would be, and for a guy that still to this point is only barely utilized in the offense. So anyway, gents, let's do this. Let's take a minute and move on to our discussion about this week's matchup. Comes a short week turnaround, but a familiar face is coming to town on Thursday night. That's Thanksgiving evening for those of you not in Canada. and this week's matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. I'll start with you, Jeremy. The COVID situation, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, the Ravens had 2 players test positive, both running backs, Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, and also they had one player that was designated as having had close contact who also must quarantine, and because of the Thursday night game and not a Sunday game, he's also out. That's Brandon Williams, the nose tackle for Baltimore. That's a huge loss, maybe even bigger than the running backs being out. So first of all, so far the teams that have had these major COVID players missing impacts have done pretty well. Tennessee came back with a win. The Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers came back after guys were missing and both had wins. Las Vegas, listen to me. The Raiders last night also put on a pretty good show for a team that didn't get to practice with their defensive guys and was still missing some guys. So is it safe to assume that Baltimore will still put up a pretty good fight in this game despite the fact that they're missing guys?
Well, absolutely. This is still this is the biggest rivalry for both of these teams. We come to play every time. I think the last time we played, there was a statistic where the Ravens and Steelers have a perfect split in this rivalry for like the last 20 years, and the only difference has been by about a point in each ball game. That's how tough and just hard these games are. It's going to be a knockout fight. It doesn't matter if they're missing Ingram, missing Dobbins. That just means Gus Edwards is going to be more amped up, to tackle his opportunity. This could be a week where Justice Hill sees some action. I believe he's still on the team as kind of that fourth running back.
Yep.
Players find a way to step up in these matchups. They do every year. Someone makes a play where it's like, oh, well, welcome to this rivalry type deal. If they haven't had a chance to do it yet, we've already played them once. Be interesting to see if there's any additional wrinkles or anything for this week on a short week for both teams, really, that are just going to be focused on being healthy going into this game.
Yeah, it's true. So, Perch, it does seem to have been a little bit of a, back and forth the last few years. Pretty hard for the Steelers or Ravens to sweep the season series. Do you think there's anything to that, like, playing the team that knows you so well multiple times maybe makes this game closer than it might appear on paper?
Yeah, how many games has Ben missed against the Ravens over the years? 7, 8, something like that. It seems like he's always been injured the week before the Ravens game and then had to miss for a suspension or injury out for the year, that sort of thing. It's the two, honestly, outside of the Patriots, probably the 2 best franchises in the AFC in the last 15 years. Just consistently in the playoffs, they draft really well. They know who they are. They put out, strong defense every year and come up with an identity on offense. And, it's a great rivalry. I don't think anybody would argue it's been the best, most competitive rivalry in the NFL for at least 10, 15 years.
Yeah, FC, also the factor here is that Baltimore's going to be desperate, having lost on Sunday. Right now they're out of the playoffs in terms of where they sit, and I think they see themselves as being not just a playoff team but a contender. Whether or not that's true, the proper response would be to come back here against your biggest rival and play the game of your life, right? Are we in for sort of like the Ravens' best, I assume?
I expect the Ravens' best, but, we mentioned Ingram, you mentioned Dobbins, you mentioned Brandon Williams. Looks like Caleb Campbell's also going to be out.
Oh, yeah.
So, I expect an undermanned Ravens team, but at the same time, I have to adjust himself. He is a different type of back, and he brings a different dimension, especially in the pass game, and he can score from anywhere in the field. You got a Willie Parker element to his game. He's small and he's slight. Gus Williams runs hard against the Steelers. You're going to get the best from Matt Judon, who got kicked out. I just don't think Baltimore has enough, and I think that the Steelers were embarrassed by the Ravens, especially their defense last game. So if the Ravens cannot run the ball and they get behind, I think Lamar Jackson's probably in the bottom 3-4 quarterbacks in the NFL. And that sounds horrible, but, he's not much better than Luke Kid from Jacksonville. If they're behind and they can't run the ball, he is not a good thrower of the ball. Statistically, you can go look at it. Whenever they're behind by more than 6 points, down by more than a touchdown, Lamar Jackson's below a 50% career passer, and his turnover to touchdown ratio goes even. And this, look at what he's done in the playoffs. I believe he has a total of 8 or 9 turnovers to 3 touchdowns in his career. So, the hype tells you one thing, your eyes tell you another.
I mean, Perch, he does, Lamar Jackson seems so limited. Like he can throw. Like as a thrower of the football, he can throw. So the fact that it's so difficult for him to complete passes that are not sort of easy and right in front of him, is that just one of those things like a quarterback either has that savvy to read the field and do that from an early age and just gets better at it, or is there something specific about what his weaknesses are?
The book's out on the guy, right? He can't throw outside the numbers. Everybody knows the Steelers kind of picked up on it. The Chiefs kind of picked up on it. And other teams see it, and the Titans have picked up on it. You've got a few different down-the-middle routes and things they do with the tight ends that the Steelers knew were coming, were able to jump in front of passes and pick them off. If you force the guy to throw outside the numbers, he can't do it. He can't quite read the defense right. Everything with him is he's got great arm. He's got the ability with the arm. He just doesn't have all the tools. You know what I mean? Like everything with him is predicated on his ability to run, getting him out on the outside or off of the play action and hitting something down the seam. He's not a complete passer. He's not like Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson or Patrick Mahomes. He's not. He's a super athlete. He's Michael Vick. I mean, he's Cordell Stewart, fancier version. And that's who he is, and the Ravens are going to, be kind of saddled with that. And what happens when these hits start piling up on the guy and he can't quite run as much or he starts getting injury issues? He's just so damn quick, nobody's able to line him up and really put a good lick on him. I mean, that's the biggest thing with him. But just as a passer, I honestly don't think that he's ever going to quite get there. And as far as the Ravens this week, are they coming in, bringing their A game, or are they completely demoralized? And they lost a game at home to a team that basically stomped on their logo at midfield before the game, told their coach to fuck off, and then ran down their throat to end the game in overtime.
But honestly, who hasn't wanted to do that to Harbaugh, though? I mean, I can't blame him for that.
Well, the whole Harbaugh family. But, and now after that, what happens? They've got 3 or 4 starters going to miss because of COVID. They probably can't practice properly all week. Short week, coming to your biggest rival on the road on Thanksgiving, on a holiday night. I mean, a couple things go bad in that first quarter of that game. This could be a blowout.
Interesting. So, Jeremy, in terms of what the Steelers will try to do in this game, are we thinking that this is a game where they're not going to be working on shit? They're going to be trying to score points and put this away. That to me means they're going to come out a home game. They're going to come out and spread them out and try to no-huddle them and matriculate the ball down the field against them and put up points early. Am I crazy to think that? Like, I know that I'm just like, I have PTSD about the Steelers opening drives, but is this not one of those situations where they're going to come out swinging?
I mean, you would definitely hope so. We saw in the last Ravens game that that's not what they did in Baltimore, and the defense was the only unit to put up points in the first half. Then they gave the ball to Ben Roethlisberger. He put up 21 points, in the second half, and they ended up winning that game by 4, 28-24. Big Ben slinging the rock around is the way this team needs to go out there and attack and force Baltimore to get one-dimensional, to where we get Lamar Jackson trying to pass his way out of a wet paper bag. Like they said, like FC and what Perch said, he's never going to be this drop-back quarterback who can read a defense, pass the ball outside the numbers. He just doesn't have that innate feel for the position like other quarterbacks we've seen. He's more athlete than quarterback. And when good defenses come to town, you see it. FC pointed out that he's in like the bottom tier when it comes to just pure passing numbers in the league because he's a one-read quarterback. And then once that one read's gone, he's hoping his feet will open something else up. I think the Steelers have the luxury of, rushing 4 all game and making him try to read a defense and go to his second or third read. Cover those tight ends, make him pass outside the numbers. Marquise Brown, he looks soft. Every time he tries to catch the ball, he's afraid he's going to get hit. I had the luxury of watching the Steelers-Jacksonville game on one TV and the Baltimore-Tennessee game at B-Dubs this week side by side. So I was able to watch both games. And Marquise Brown just seems like he's afraid to get hit out there. And he's supposed to be one of their most explosive playmakers, but really none of their receivers are playmakers because Lamar Jackson cannot get them the ball consistently and put the ball where it needs to go as far as precision passing goes. I just think this Lamar Jackson experiment might go on for another year or so, but I would not be surprised to see the Ravens move on here eventually if it looks like he can't grow as a quarterback in this league. And I think we're getting to that point.
Yeah, I mean, Perch, setting aside the COVID and the problems with the problems with the practicing and so on and so forth, do you feel like the Steelers, having given up 285 yards the last time on the ground, do you feel like that they are it's obvious that they're going to try to be better than that. But if it means giving Lamar Jackson a little bit more room to run, where would you make that choice? Would you rather give up the 285 yards on the ground and not have Lamar Jackson be able to do what he likes to do and win the game, or is it important to also shut down the run against them? What are we really trying to prove?
I mean, you've got to really do everything you can to shut down that run game because that's all they've got. I just don't think Lamar Jackson can. I'd almost force him to beat you with his arm. Almost sell out to stop the run and do everything you can. You can't afford to go into this game and let them move up and down. I mean, what did the Steelers have in the last game? 200 total yards the entire game between throwing and running because the Ravens just controlled the clock and had the ball for long stretches. Unfortunately, we got turnovers to be able to set ourselves up in position to score. But that happened last year. It was in the second game too. Whenever didn't even start Lamar Jackson because they'd already had everything wrapped up, and they just completely bludgeoned the Steelers, with the run game. So the Steelers, that's a big thing. Alualu's back. He didn't play the first game against them, and they've got to find a way to shut that run game. If they shut that run game down, I think Baltimore's in big trouble.
So FC, do you? Perch said, he's leaning towards this possibly being a blowout, and I was like, I'm a little bit worried about it being, Baltimore turning this into a war. Where do you come off on that? You lean more towards blowout or more towards a nail biter here?
To quote Bino Cook, the great former Pittsburgh sports writer, loosely.
Yes, the great Bino Cook, yes.
Great Bino Cook, really was just a joy. There's a few things that you don't do. You don't go into Notre Dame at night and try to win. You don't fight ever road battles in the winter in Russia. And you don't try to come in and win a war in Pittsburgh on Sunday Night Football, prime time. Tomlin is great in primetime games. He always has the team ready to play, it seems. And I think it's going to be a bludgeoning, but not a blowout. And what I mean by that is I think the Steelers could come out, no huddle, and score just about every time they have the ball. But they're not going to do that. That would be the smart thing to do because that keeps Martindale and his exotic blitz packages pretty much on the sideline because no huddle, you force a coordinator to go vanilla. If he doesn't, you got a good chance of, big splash play. I really think that the Steelers are going to want to dominate this run game for the point that Perch pointed out. We gave up 285 last time, and Robert Griffin Jr. was dancing and having a good time whenever they bludgeoned us again with the run game. And, they didn't bludgeon us in the first meeting last year. We were a Juju Smith-Schuster fumble from possibly winning that game with Duck Hodges as our quarterback, but we didn't win. And I think that Butler and the defensive staff are going to really take this one personally. So I expect a pretty standout performance from the Steelers defense. Maybe the best one of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like Gus Edwards though. It's like to me, I almost feel like Gus Edwards is a better starter choice against the Pittsburgh Steelers than Ingram or Dobbins. Call me crazy, Perch. It feels like that is actually that moves the needle slightly in their favor.
He's just a big, powerful guy. He doesn't have the explosiveness of kind of what Dobbins had the last game. And just, like I said, like FC mentioned too, I mean, Justice Hill's a talented guy. I mean, how the hell is that guy fourth on somebody's depth chart? I'm looking at our running backs and then looking at theirs. I'm like, Jesus Christ, there's a big difference here. But, they're built to run the ball 45 times a game and we're built to pass it. But yeah, Edwards will do what he can, and he's a powerful guy, and he's tough to bring down, and he'll be able to get the 4 or 5 yards up the gut every play, but he's not going to do much more than that. So we'll see how well he does, carrying the load throughout the game.
Yeah, Jeremy, just one last Gus Edwards question. How did he not become a Pittsburgh Steeler? It just feels like, if you look around the league at all the running backs on all the rosters, he's the one guy that you're just like, how did he not become a Steeler? He looks like a Steeler running back.
Yeah, he's built low to the ground. And honestly, I didn't have a very high opinion on him coming out of Rutgers, but he finds a way to get the job done, right? And you've seen a lot of backs in Pittsburgh do that. Honestly, I was hoping the Steelers were going to draft James Robinson in the 7th. I got a chance to see him down at the East-West Shrine game, before he went undrafted. And that kind of struck me as that lunch pail, work hard type of back that Pittsburgh loves to take and, have success with. So, yeah, we don't have the greatest stable of running backs right now. I think Pittsburgh was really helping Benny Snell would be that, but he really hasn't shown a whole lot to this point. He's shown he can put the football on the ground occasionally, though.
Yeah, I mean, FC, I think we all like the idea maybe of giving some different carries to other running backs, but I don't know. Just as a look-ahead question, during the bye week, which is coming up, do you think there'll be some tweaks to the Steelers roster or what they're doing on the field?
No. I mean, on the field, sure. To the roster, no. Barring injury, no. We are what we are.
Yeah, although I did hear that Zach Gentry might have a season-ending injury. That's the preliminary word yesterday. So
how much cap space do we have left?
Yeah.
Zach Gentry
not going on IR. He's not going on IR. It's not as bad as they thought. It's just a sprain.
Okay, good. Good, because, a team without Zach Gentry, I mean, I'm not sure how – we wouldn't even be doing a show. I'm pretty sure. Perch, what am I missing about this? It just feels like, Ravens Steelers, like we're all so familiar with what's going on. And the storyline about, the book on Lamar Jackson and that the Ravens ran 285 yards last time against the Steelers, and the Steelers can't run it against anybody, even if Brandon Williams is out, and they're going to spread it around and try to get, the matchups against Baltimore's 4th and 5th defensive back, blah, blah, blah. Their special teams is fantastic. What am I missing about this matchup that might be a factor on Thursday Night Football?
Williams and Campbell being out. I mean, that's the two big, beefy bodies in the middle of that defensive line, and how many balls did Calais Campbell bat last time? I don't know which way to read that, though. One is, hey, the two big guys are out of the middle, would probably have a little bit more success running. Two, maybe the Steelers coaches see that and try to start pounding the run game instead of coming out and passing, which is my fear. But yeah, I mean, obviously as the game goes on, that's really got to, I mean, imagine losing 2/3 of our defensive line and one of these big rivalry games with Baltimore. That's just it's tough. So that should be big. I mean, I think that'll loosen things up a little bit in the run game and also, make it a little bit easier to pass block too.
I got something quickly to add.
Yeah,
control your emotions. I would tell my players, control your emotions. Don't be running your mouth. Don't be taking penalties. Don't be smacking each other in the opponent in the helmet. They're going to look to throw you out of the game. Control your emotions.
Yeah.
This team's done that really well this year, though. I don't know if we've got rid of some of the hot hits, just the whole mentality and temperament of the team. It just seems.
I would have benched Steven Nelson for the series on Dom. Yeah. We're way too short. Stupid. 2 referee stands. Stupid.
Yeah.
Take off your helmet, do squat thrusts. I made him do squat thrusts on the sideline. I would have put him back in the fucking game.
Do some squat thrusts, son. Yeah, I mean, that sort of roundabout way brings me to one last thing to talk about, Jeremy, and that is a factor that can, in 2020, can change the tenor of any game, and that is how the game is officiated. And by that, I don't mean exactly just bad officiating, because, pretty much every game in the NFL has some calls that you're just like, what? And I don't even mean just that. I mean more like, if they're letting Baltimore's defensive backs get away with clutching and grabbing, like let me see if I get this right, the 2000 Florida Panthers clutching and grabbing like the Florida Panthers. If that's how the game is being officiated, that's one thing. If they're calling offensive holding on minor offenses, that's a different thing. It just feels like that really impacts the game and can turn a game that's not that close back into a close game. Jeremy, you seem like the kind of guy that looks ahead and knows who the officiating crew is and all the details about them. Do you have it sussed out for this game? I'm not to put you on the spot.
No, I haven't looked ahead to see who's officiating this game. I mean, this has always been a physical matchup, so I think they're going to let both sides play hard. This has been a matchup that's always been tough and physical. I think they're going to let the little things go. Hopefully they police it enough to where, it doesn't turn into a bloodbath. It doesn't turn into a real war. I want Pittsburgh coming out of this game as healthy as possible. I'd hate to lose someone in this game just because it's a rivalry game and where, the refs are letting each team go after one another. So, I'd hope they'd keep it civil is the word I was going to use. That doesn't exactly,
it's a civil war that's not so civil, by the way.
Yeah, it doesn't exactly belong on a football field. But I think they'll let it stay competitive as long as it doesn't get too ruthless. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I don't know, Perch, just give you the last word on this. It does seem like one of the disadvantages of having a young receiving crew is they don't get a lot of calls for what might be obvious penalties if you're, say, playing with Tom Brady in New England.
I don't know. I mean, they've got a fair amount of pass interference calls down the field. I don't know. That's a real issue.
Okay, because like I said, it did seem a little bit to me like like Chase Claypool's not really getting any calls right now. He's sort of the Mario Lemieux, to take it back to that 2000. He's sort of the Mario Lemieux where it's like, you got this big, strong dude, you can do just about anything to him and we're not going to call you on it. That's sort of how I feel about that. I don't know. FC, you got an opinion on this? Am I crazy?
Absolutely, Jeff. It's the referee's job to observe and to officiate the game, not to interject themselves into the game. It's Chase Claypool's job to go out there and catch balls, not turn around and bitch at the referee whenever he thinks he's being interfered with. They're going to throw the flag. They're going to throw the flag. You running your mouth and being a diva doesn't help things one bit. So I think that Chase Claypool should just play his game and stop bitching at referees. I really mean that. It's the worst thing he can do, because 50-50 calls, the referee may keep the flag in his pocket and say, you know what? You want to show me up on TV? Here you go. Play on.
There you go. Okay. Well, we have multiple opinions on that. That's what makes the show go around. We will get back to talking about this, our 5-star matchup against the Ravens on Thursday night. But first, let's go to the videotape, and we'll open up our illustrious pick segment brought to us by
Sports and Shit, your home for all your Steelers swag. Ron Riveron, or whatever, Al Riveron, oh boy. John Terry, oh boy. Mike Pereira, oh boy. And we're going to go with Chris Collinsworth's kid that basically swore on NBC, but will keep his job because of, well, nepotism, and he's Chrissy's kid.
Fair enough. We do escape Al Michaels this week, but we're going to get Chris Collinsworth, which I know will make you ultra happy, FC. But Al Michaels, I don't know if he has in his contract that he's not allowed to appear during Thanksgiving, perhaps. So let's start by talking about your divisional matchup in the AFC South. That would be the Tennessee Titans at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are a 3.5-point favorite over the Titans. Titans coming off the big win against Baltimore. Colts coming off the big comeback win against Green Bay. Which, by the way, I'd like to point out that we were both right, Perch. You pointed out that Aaron Rodgers finds a way to lose to good opponents on the road when he gets behind, and I pointed out that he has great games inside the dome. I give us each a win for that. But I'll start with you, Jeremy. Tell me about who you like in this game. Titans, Colts. Colts a 3.5-point favorite.
I like the Colts. The one thing that stands out about the Colts is they're playing great defense right now. They're forcing turnovers, as to our Tennessee's defense has been Swiss cheese all year. Doesn't matter what team it is. They've been able to move the ball down Tennessee's throat most of the year. Even the Ravens found a way to come back, on Sunday this past week to force that game to overtime. I just think the Colts are playing fantastic right now. Philip Rivers is really starting to settle in on offense. Start out the year, I didn't think he looked good at all, but he's really turned it around in this last month. Getting Michael Pittman back has been huge for them. He's had 2 huge games for them, both over 100 yards, both catching the touchdown. So I'm going with the Colts.
How about you, Perch?
Same. I mean, to me, it just comes down. I think both those offenses are pretty efficient and good at what they do. The real difference, I think the Colts have a really good defense. The Titans are somewhat suspect. I think that'll be enough to get the Colts to probably a 3 or 4 point win.
And FC.
I'll take the Titans and the points. I think the Titans are going to win outright. The Colts win, they're going to win by a field goal. I'll take the half-point cover.
Yeah, I'll take the Titans. I don't know. The Colts found a way to not impress me in their giant comeback win. I don't know. I just feel like their defense is good, and their quarterback is good for stretches of the game. But something about them seems a little bit off to me. Like in a way, I feel like that team would be better off with Jacoby Brissett in there all the time instead of on 3rd and 1. But maybe that's just me and my bias against what the ghost of Phil Rivers is doing right now. Let's go on to the Carolina Panthers at the Minnesota Vikings. Panthers somehow shut out a team despite the fact that I don't think they even feel the defense. And the Vikings are maybe the hardest team in the NFL to pick right now. They alternate between not being able to beat anybody and then looking like they can beat anyone. This week they're a 4.5-point favorite to the host or to the visiting Carolina Panthers. FC, how do you see this game?
I really would like to take the Panthers because I love what their coach is doing there. I think he's one of the best young coaches in the NFL. I can't do it, despite I think Adam Thielen's out for the year now. Dalvin Cook's been pretty much shut down the last 2 weeks. I think the Vikings and Dalvin Cook will do enough to win the game. I'm not sure they're going to cover, but I'll still take the Vikings.
Yeah, how about you, Perch?
I just can't think of a game I give less of a rat's ass about. I mean, it's just too
Oh, I could find one for you. This week is full of games we don't give a rat's ass about. Are you kidding?
It's just like, NFC, four win teams. Who cares? Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins, I think, has shown how mediocre he is this year, and the Panthers have been playing above their heads. I don't know. Vikings at home. Dalvin Cook's probably going to go off. I'll take the Vikings to win.
I'll take Carolina. I think Adam Thielen being out is a big deal. I heard that he was out he tested positive for COVID or whatever, but FC, he's out for the year now? What happened with this?
You're wrong. I might have read it wrong on the bottom line. Pricing. I play daily fantasy sports, so I make.
Hey, that was COVID.
Yeah, it's COVID. Okay,
but
then
still,
out for a couple of
weeks. Yeah, Perch, would you have rather talked about Broncos at hosting the Saints? I don't think so.
Absolutely.
All right, well, give us a bonus pick. Who do you like in the Saints being a 5.5-point road favorite at the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, I tell you what, Saints last few weeks, that defense is looking really good. So they'll be able to do enough on offense. The Broncos, I think the Broncos are just treading water at this point, waiting for the end of the year in the draft. So I think the Saints win and cover.
Yeah, see, I think the Saints are – I mean, the Broncos are actually good at one thing. Their defense is actually pretty good. And against Taysom Hill starting, I could see that being a bit of a surprise Bronco victory. But, call me crazy.
Jeremy, who do you like in the Minnesota-Carolina game?
Oh, sorry, bud.
Oh, you're fine. I like Minnesota. Just to clarify, Vikings placed Thielen on the reserve COVID list today. So as long as he, quarantines and tests negative, I assume he's going to play Sunday. So,
I think he actually tested positive. Did he not?
I'm reading it on ESPN right now, just that they placed him on the list. It doesn't say that he's been tested positive or he's required to quarantine or whatever. So until we see a positive test, I'm going to assume that, he's going to quarantine. He's going to play Sunday. But maybe that's just me being hopeful I don't have to find an Adam Thielen replacement on my fantasy football team. But honestly, I know Dalvin Cook's been shut down a little bit, but he still has remained effective. Really, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen have really made that passing game come alive at times. I'm taking the Vikings, and against a game where I think that they're going to find a way to keep PJ Walker and crew under control.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Fair enough. We'll talk about the other game this week. This week that is probably the best game of the weekend that the Steelers are not playing in. Perch, see if you can pick this game for me without telling me anything about what's happened tonight, because some of us haven't seen the game yet tonight. So Chiefs Buccaneers. The premier matchup of this coming weekend, I guess. Chiefs are a 3-point favorite over Tampa Bay. What do you think happens in this game?
I think the Chiefs roll them, to be honest. I think the luster's coming off the Bucs. Brady looks shell-shocked to get any pressure on him. I don't think that Tampa Bay's defense is as good as it looked a couple of games earlier this year. I think Chiefs hang 30-some on them and win, I would say 34-26.
How about UFC?
I think the Chiefs will win sizably, 10, 14 points. So yeah, I agree with Birch.
And you, Jeremy?
Well, I'm going to go with the Chiefs too. Jamal Dean is a guy who is really struggling down in Tampa Bay right now, and teams just seem to exploit him week in, week out when it comes to the Tampa Bay defense. Chiefs are a team that have, quite a few receiving options. I feel like they're going to be able to play matchup all game long and get the matchup they want and to just exploit it with the best quarterback in the game.
Gee, you mean Tom Brady's not the best quarterback in the game anymore? I'm shocked.
No.
What's funny? I realized this weekend, and I guess I sort of knew it, but I realized this weekend that Kansas City is they're the new New England. They're the team that now when I watch them, that my wife was like, you're still rooting for, why are you breaking your heart this way? Like, you're setting yourself up for failure by watching a game and hoping that they lose. It's like they're just going to crush your spirit in the end. And it's just like, yeah, you're right.
One championship.
I know, but it's like a little bit like no, it's not about the number of championships. It's about the inevitability of them winning when they're in games. It's like such a shock when they lose. That was the deal with New England more than the championships even.
Their lightest road game that they have left this season. How about that? Because I think they play two other road games this year that I would say are brutal. New Orleans is one. That defense is. And they play another one on the road, and their other two games are at home.
Yeah, they have some tough.
They play
matchups.
Miami still.
Yeah,
they play Miami, who's a sneaky, very good defense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think there's at least a potential for Kansas City to drop a game, and it wouldn't be outrageous for them to drop two the rest of the season. So anyway, but yeah, just something about like that game last night was just like you could see the train wreck. You could see the car crash coming with 2.5 quarters left to go in that game. It was like, this is going to end, right? Yeah, no, this is going to end. Anyway, listen, let's talk about – we can talk about the Chiefs, 2 months down the road when we play them. For now, let's move on to our 5-star matchup. And it, of course, is a 5-star matchup because the Steelers are in it this week. It's a legit 5-star matchup, I would say, as your Pittsburgh Steelers host – their biggest rival right now, the Baltimore Ravens. There was someone, was it Adam Shine? I forget who predicted that the Ravens would go undefeated this year and that the Steelers would be below 500. I think 6
Colin Cowherd.
Colin Cowherd. There you go. And this game, we're now reached week 12. It looks kind of the opposite. But even though the Steelers beat Baltimore a couple of weeks ago, it was a game that was, could have gone either way, really. And probably, a close matchup on paper. I'll start with you, Jeremy. What do you think is going to happen in this game?
I think it's going to start off, being that knuckle buster we all think, but I think Pittsburgh separates around the third quarter. I think Pittsburgh wins 30-17.
Nice, 30-17. I have to dig up the record books to see if they've won by that kind of a margin against Baltimore since 2007. I'll get back to you on that. Perch, tell me about how you see this matchup.
I think the Ravens' third and fourth running backs will still put up well over 100 yards against the Steelers' defense. I just think that old Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger is going to be able to do enough on offense to throw some points on the board. The Steelers' defense is going to do enough to get Lamar Jackson to have some turnovers, sack fumbles or interceptions. Steelers will win comfortably, not huge. I'll say Steelers 23-20.
You're the best, Perch. FC, how do you see this week?
Sunday night, I think the Steelers have 3 receivers over 100 yards, 4 receivers catch touchdown passes. I'll take the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this game 38-21.
Yeah, if you took the totality of everything the Steelers have done so far this year, and you took the totality of everything the Ravens have done so far this year, and you just plugged it into a computer and spit it out, this would look like a really close game, like a 21-20, 23-20, 24-21 kind of a game, 24-23. That's where these teams are on paper. But as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when they played, there's something about this matchup, and especially the Steelers team, the way it's construed this year, they haven't played their best football yet. So you can't really go by what they've done earlier in the year. And Baltimore, I think, played better earlier in the year than they're playing now. But the factor for me is I kind of was on the fence about what score to pick until I think it was Perch that pointed out that it was a primetime game at home in Pittsburgh under Mike Tomlin. And I was like, what was I thinking? Of course, this is going to be a dominant Pittsburgh win. So I'm going to I'm going to throw out the analytics and the paperwork and just say, I don't know that it'll be, a blowout by a giant points margin, but it's probably going to feel a little bit like it. I will call it 34-20, your Pittsburgh Steelers to win this game. Yeah, I think Baltimore is, Lamar Jackson's capable of running 70 yards on any play, and almost impossible to stop when they use 4 downs in a series to try to get the first down. So I think they're going to score some points, and their field goal kicker, can make kicks from Afghanistan. So I'll give them 20. Steelers 34-20. Last words. I'll start with you, Jeremy.
First college football playoffs come out this Tuesday, first rankings. I think it'll be interesting to see who that 5 and 6 team are, because you've got Clemson that's going to be in there with one loss. And Clemson and Notre Dame are going to replay here. So I think Notre Dame drops out once they play in the ACC championship. So whoever's 5 and 6 is going to have that opportunity to jump into the playoff.
Nice. Northwestern?
No.
Just
BYU?
BYU, exactly. Coastal Carolina? Yeah. I was going to say Liberty. Birch, last word.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys. In this miserable world of COVID and being stuck indoors and everything being all fucked up, just thankful for having a forum to post on the last 20 years and you guys as co-hosts and all that goodness. And Tom Brady just threw a game-losing interception in the fourth quarter. So happy Thanksgiving, boys and girls.
And Christmas for all the boys and girls. FC, last word.
This is one of the most difficult games of the year. It's not because it's the Steelers-Ravens. You got to get just fucked up enough to be able to tolerate the horrible Thanksgiving meal you're about to eat and the relatives you really don't want to see. Just fucked up enough that you take a nap and you can wake up for the Steelers, but not too fucked up where you're still fucked up when you wake up from that nap to watch the Steelers and Ravens. In all seriousness, don't drink and drive, and I agree with what Bert said. Thankful for having the forum, going back to the sporting news days, all the way to the creation that we have today. So, way to go, boys.
Nice. And you guys help make that, keep going, keep it alive. Yeah, I mean, you have a good solution to FC this year. You just beg off doing family gatherings, man. It's 2020. You can get away with that, and see your relatives. Another time outdoors on the golf course, maybe. But in seriousness, be thoughtful and safe. Don't take a chance on being the person responsible for making your loved one sick, man. That's not a good way to go through life. And in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I'm promising to be thankful that after this Thursday game, they get a win against Baltimore. I am going to be all positivity next week, and we're not going to talk about anything negative about this team for at least one show. So how about we get together after a big Steeler win next week on behalf of Jeremy Coleman there in Indiana and Dom down there in South Carolina and Perch somewhere in the greater suburban zone 22 area of Western Pennsylvania. Everyone at Steeler Fury and from the Tweeterverse. And for me here in lovely New York City, I'm your host, Will Massasak, a.k.a. Bradshaw the Ben, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter, saying, go get 'em, Steelers.
Go Stars.
There we go.